A pleasure to meet all at last, and for this instance of HJN Season 5, this is number 2712. However, you might think that we're going through a sub-series, but for the next several episodes, we'll mostly be focusing on specific types of materials. You have plastics, glass, metals, wood, rubber. That's mostly just the basis of things that I could talk about that are all related to commonly known materials, whether they're for building, constructing, designing, etc. These are just some materials that I'm more than inclined to talk about in greater detail. So, we'll basically talk about a few of those for the next few episodes. Plastics are what I'm going to be talking about first, because as you probably know, you don't just build, design things with them. Plastics have, for the record, become so commonplace in today's society, I might as well talk a bit about them. First off, the usage of plastics commonly in the likes of grocery shopping, materialization, construction, designs, and a variety of other uses has become such a big thing out there. The biggest reason for the usage of plastics nowadays is because of its cheapness. People find it to be a cheap item made specifically for cheap handling. But where there's cheapness in terms of the expense that you have to pay for using it, there also are the costs. There's occasions in which that I recall where sometimes grocery bags get a little too heavy from excessive loads, and they often end up breaking. Yeah. Similar things could be noted when it comes to paper bags, which some people still do carry and some stores still use time and time again. They also still occasionally sport the bag boy, in which that they help bag your items in the paper or plastic bags at cashiers. So that way you won't have to worry about doing it yourself. For me though, I've mostly been doing my own packing, my own transacting, and of course, the usage of self-checkouts. The main reason is because I lack good social skills. And perhaps it's for the best. You know what they say about insanity? The best way to cure it is to let it run its course. And not everybody would know about that. But in a bigger sense, we know that plastics aren't the only thing that grocery stores could have. Or moreover, plastics aren't exactly exclusive to stores by any means. Not just grocery ones, but department outlets or peculiar brands by any means. Like Forever 21, Gap, and Lululemon. You could find plastic in many different places. But for the most part, why I've mentioned that plastic is so commonplace is because there were the many problems stemming from its cheapness. The easiness of disposal, but more importantly, the kind of plagues that have come upon the oceans. Yeah, you're familiar with the plastic in the ocean problem, a thing that had been ongoing for a long time. But it was by the start of this decade in which that plastic in the oceans became such a big story for everybody to listen to. The kind of problems that it had on wildlife, the kind of effects that it had, not just in the water, but elsewhere. The kind of drinking water that we have mostly comes from the ocean, inland waterways, filtration systems specifically made to filter out the salt that is in most seawater throughout the oceans throughout the world. But the thing is that to try and filter out seawater in order to turn it into fresh drinking water, in order to allow for people to have enough to drink throughout the world, especially in third world or developing countries, that alone is a pretty big money pit that most people have been trying to put together in an effort to at least allow for the technology that we have to keep people well hydrated, even in such big times in which that such problems like droughts, sandstorms, or other problems start to ensue. Anybody who happens to live in a desert, you probably don't get very much rain, unless by chance it ends up happening. Well, I probably don't aim to get off topic like this, so while plastics were basically in usage most commonly nowadays, in which that it's so cheap to use, to get a hold of, or to work with. Most people might not know about how plastics are first created. Well, first off, the cheapness in its nature is that plastic is typically made using various chemicals, and somehow toxic pieces happen to allow for the cheapness in various materials. You have such chemicals in mind: vinyl chloride, isobutylene, cresol, phenyl, and various other things. But with the treatment of harsh chemicals, of course, comes the risk of, if persons were, let's say, consume the plastic, by which they never should, regardless of what it might be. And that is not only because of the chemicals used to create the plastic, but also the kinds that might trigger various problems in the body: allergic reactions, kidney failure, or possibly circulatory issues as well. Digestive blockages are also known to happen in some people that were apparently known to consume plastic, whether as an extremely rare case of a habitual problem or some sort of psychological condition. Yeah, if you're familiar with TLC, you might see where this is going. And I know it probably is not right to talk about TLC by now, but that doesn't excuse anything. History is history, and it's probably going to stay as long as the internet continues to exist. Well, I feel like that this sort of dark turn in HJN has been going on for a little while, so to sum it all up, plastics are made with various chemicals, creating a unique surface that can either be flimsy or malleable or tough enough to rival against the likes of solid panes of glass or even metal, if tough enough, that is. And while there's a good variety of different plastics that I can talk about, usually made as hybrids in a similar way as to how certain alloys are made, with hybrid creation or cross implementation, plastics are similar in a way to many other materials in which that they can be combined with others to create something new, but more importantly, to expand upon the usage of plastics entirely. Whenever you mix two things together, you get something new and a variety of things to use for. So plastic is just the beginning of what I expect to say much about various materials that we use, especially in 2025, when so many things operate with so many other things. Yeah, the math might not make sense at first, but I'll have lots more to say in the next few episodes. So make sure to like, subscribe, comment, follow me wherever you can find me, and stay on the Hollywood side for more.